Hello world and welcome to episode 19 of the Top Split, aka Splash and Dash 5. I'm your host Alex McKellar, and today my regular co-host AJ is flat knacker in his new job and unable to be with us, but the show must go on, as they say, and joining me today is my very special guest host, Team Milo's own Mr. Benn Snell. Welcome to you again, Mr. Snell.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Thank you for being here, Ben. Of course, you're no stranger to the podcast. You've done an episode with me previously, but this time something a little different in the short and sharp splash and dash format, usually reserved for AJ and myself, of course. But given what I had in mind for this episode in particular, it's kind of serendipitous, and I'm glad to hear. So while the doctor is away, let's get on and play. We should jump right into it. The first topic I had in mind today will no doubt be familiar to people in the community. I want us to go back and look a little bit of the stuff going around the new tyre model as it stands and how it's been applied to the Skip Barber cars. Last episode we spoke a bit about it, and we covered how we can all acknowledge the fundamental issues with it and how the physics are as they stand. We also spoke a little bit about how some folks at the more serious end of town felt that it was, detrimental to the reasons that they use the sim, in gaining simulated track time and building the skills applicable to the real world. Now, I get that, and I had sympathy for that position at the time, and I still do to some extent. However, in the past couple of weeks, since we did the last episode, I found myself increasingly frustrated by that position and the withdrawal of support for the series, for the category of some of the top drivers. There are a couple of main gripes with the physics that people have at the moment. One is that there's too much grip once the tyres warm up, and with the application of increased steering angle and throttle, you can turn the car mid to late corner more than what should be physically possible. I accept that. I don't think too many drivers are going to complain too much about more grip necessarily. Where things are getting hairy is where the limit of grip is exceeded in different scenarios and where the rear of the car lets go. Commonly referred to as oversteer, I guess. It's in these situations where one would normally perform corrective countersteering to a small or large degree depending on the circumstances. This, folks, is where the world apparently is just falling down. It's over. Everyone go home and just say your prayers. It's done. At least in terms of the physics, but also in terms of those driving the car as well. As we discussed last episode, I think we did from memory, normal countersteering techniques where you turn the wheel in the opposite direction or towards the rear of the car as it tries to come towards the front actually increases the speed of the over-rotation of the rear of the car, rather than countering the excess rotation, which is what physics would normally dictate. This is, from my observations, the main thing that people have taken issue with. There's super grip on warm tyres, as we mentioned, the apparent grip improvements the lower you go with tyre pressures, and the crazy low grip on cold tyres. All those things exist, but the one to rule them all is the complete abandonment of physics when pushing the grip limits in cornering and countersteering. Now, Ben, I've been building up for a rant on this topic for the last week or so, but before I go full throttle on that, I want to bring you in on this. Now, you and I have been racing for a while together, and as late as last Thursday night this week, we did a couple of races together while I was streaming, and I've mentioned this there. You've got real track experience, and I know your genre of choice in real life is the drifting world, and it's for that reason that I think your views on the current state of play are particularly relevant, for background, so people know why I'm particularly glad you're here this time, and a bit of context. I mean, I've seen some fantastically outrageous footage of you, mate. It was from a camera in someone's car. It was part of a montage or collage or something, and this car was, drifting stupendously sideways when all of a sudden you see Mr. Snell come into shot with a wonderfully cheeky grin on his face. The outrageous part of it being, of course, was that you at the time were in another car going sideways right next to it and perfectly synchronized to this original car. And the shot was taken from the driver's seat through the passenger's window with your cheesy grin, seeing as the cars were so close together, you could have reached through and adjusted his radio for him, mate. Now, and no doubt you were sending plumes of smoke into the end of the sky at the same time at this incredulous angle. I imagine it was one of those moments that you live for, mate. And much like a surfer, I guess, chasing the perfect barrel to hop in the green room or whatever, it looked like you were having fun anyway, mate. Was that the case?
Oh, of course, and thanks for the kind words. Drifting is it's a lot cheaper than real motorsport, so it's one of the reasons why I got into it back in the day. But of course, it's the most fun you can have on four wheels. But you're right. You're right. The car is broken. There's no arguing that the car is broken. And some of the things that you do naturally, I'm one of those people that drives on the right on the limit of the car. I'm not a guy that can look at telemetry and go, I need to do this and do this and do this to get faster. I only drive faster by driving faster, so I can't drive sedately and fast. So I have been getting bit a lot by this new tire model and
Hmm.
the new Skippy. So, but I've found some things that work and some things that don't work, and most of the time it doesn't work.
Yeah, look, and you've had this real life experience at living on the edge, as it were, and beyond it, And the point for me is, you know how to handle cars in real life where oversteering and countersteering is concerned. At least you've done it, you understand it, you know how it all works. And you use it in your iRacing, I would suggest to your advantage. I mean, I read an ebook that someone had written about how to use oversteering to go faster, and it is important to live on the edge, so to speak. And I'd argue in the last couple of seasons in particular, you've really started hitting your stride in the skips at least. You've always had pretty good pace, and I doubt you just kind of mentioned it yourself. I doubt you'd hate me for saying that you had some mistakes in you as a result of living on the edge, and that they've cost you some results, but that you could have got perhaps on pace alone. But you get that pace from going that close to the edge, and I'd argue that the skills you bring to the table from the drift scene very much help you with controlling the car on the edge, and I think you'd verify that, which is what we need to go fast now. How have you found, this has impacted you? I mean, I was pleased to see someone was watching the stream the other night and posted up in the forums that they saw, we watched a replay of you saving something on the turn, the left-hander, I can't remember the corner number, just before the carousel at Road America. And you were, he described it as in a sawing motion with the wheel, left, right, left, right, left, right kind of thing, quick little movements to countersteer the loss of the rear grip. What sort of stuff have you found yourself having to do to sort of counteract this counterintuitive physics that's going on?
Well, the first thing I've done is I've set the car up a way more understeering,
Yeah,
just trying to stop the car from rotating so much, which
yeah.
is completely opposite to what we've been doing in the Skippy as far as I've ever driven it. It's always been, low SPO, trying to get the nose down, get the car as snappy as you can. So I've got the front up, I've got softer rear sway bar, just everything trying to stop the rear stepping out. I'm running 53 brake bias, which is, incredibly forward compared to some guys. But yeah, when the car snaps sideways, it's even doing if you do the same thing over and over, like you go sideways in the same spot with the same amount of yaw rate, you could do the same counter measures the same twice, and both times will be a different reaction. It's crazy that it just doesn't seem to naturally work. If you
Mm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I do. It is, and this is the thing. This is why we're saying the physics of it all. We get it. It's kind of, it's just weird. And I got to tell you, I don't live as close to the edge as most, but when I feel the rear go, the natural movement is just to turn into it, and to suddenly feel like you've accelerated the rear end of the car in doing so is quite unnatural. It does feel very strange, but we're coming up on the tail end of 4 weeks into the season. At the start, we're all sort of getting used to it. And I know you and I both took a bath in terms of our results and I rating. Mine, I'd argue, was because I made some poor decisions in races. Plus, there were a few related to getting caught out by the physics changes. I was wondering, the mindset of someone like you is far more skilled than me when it comes to controlling the car on and over the edge. You know, you've kept racing. I mean, I checked this morning, and as it stands prior to tonight's SNL race, you've lost. Now prepare yourself, mate. It's four. Oh, you probably know it's 491 I rating in 23 races. Now that hurts, right? But I was on the same path for a couple of weeks. I managed to turn it around, and I think I'm up 35 for the season. But I was 260 down similarly after 2 weeks. Um, what's kept you going? I mean, all by all reports, the overall participation in the skip barber category has continued to be strong. However, there's been a notable drop off at the top end of the spectrum when it comes to the quicker drivers. Bucking that trend has been someone like yourself. There's a few others, but what's kept you racing?
I just enjoy having fun. Also, the community. Like, I know everybody that race, especially in the top split.
Yep,
I know everybody that's in a Skippy. If I don't know them personally, I know how they drive.
yep.
Unlike a GT race or something like that, which I don't do very often, I can't jump into a GT race, even though I'm still not comfortable in the car. I can still jump into a Skippy race and go, oh, I know such and such. Grebo's in here. Sculty's in here. A couple of the Iberians that I race with all the time. Like, you know what you're going to get. Even though the car is different, the drivers are still the same, which is definitely one of the reasons why I keep racing the Skippy.
So it's about the community for you, mate. That's what
Oh, for
keeps you
sure.
going. Yeah, that's it. Now, here's where my rant. Now, I've been streaming a little bit this week and last, and I've been saying it's coming. Here it comes. Now, I'm finding it increasingly hard to have sympathy for the guys who've essentially abandoned us in the series because of these changes. Now, I get the reasons why they're doing it. I think we've discussed it enough to demonstrate that we have an understanding of what they're talking about and the reasons why they might have done it. What I am struggling with is I don't know. Maybe it's a lack of perspective. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what I'd call it, to be honest. I'm not the fastest or the best Skippy driver going around. I work at getting better. I enjoy working at getting better, and I enjoy seeing the results when I do get a bit better. I get some good results every now and then, and I have some fun doing it, which is the most important thing to me. I've been taken aback on more than one occasion when someone's told me that they look up to me, whether it be because they've seen me on the stream or whatever it is, and the way I drive or something like that. I struggle to see the value in myself when it comes to my driving and speed and pace and all that sort of stuff. However, the point that I want to make on that is that people do look at guys in the top split races. They look at the guys on broadcast, whether it be Sunday Night Lights, Monday Night Skippies, 2K Cup, whatever it is, or even just in the regular races that, we've all been there. We get in there and we see someone that's like a second fast and you just go, are we driving the same car, right? And we look at their times and their results and we can imagine ever achieving them. We admire, their skill, their pace and their talent. So what happens when they walk away? Not only did they take their bat and ball and go home, in some cases, not many, but in some, they badmouth and squabble about it all, right? About the changes, and they whinge and moan about it. What also happens when, week one of the season, I go into the VRS lap guide, and half of it was about how crap the car is to drive now. Now, please, don't take it the wrong way. Johnny Kindy does the guides, and I am a big fan of Johnny and the work that he does in those guides. I think his guides are fantastic. In fact, the guides I've watched on the service, on the VRS service, and I've watched a number of them. His are the best in my opinion. He's really informative, he's passionate, super detailed, and I couldn't ask for more when it comes to a guide. His guides have really and genuinely helped me tremendously improving my driving to the point where I've reached a new best in terms of my results, my I rating, and when I say new best, by quite a margin. This largely I credit to the application of what I've learned watching VRS guides such as his, and which I said Johnny's are the best in my opinion. He's also been a guest on the show, and his story, if you go back and listen to it, is really cool. It's really amazing to see what he's done. So go check that one out as well. What I saw in his week one guide, though, was someone who is, infinitely passionate about his iRacing and also very frustrated by the changes that have been made. And I think it was representative of quite a few out there. I saw someone that I looked up to, and what he was giving a spray to the problems that had been introduced, essentially. From what I can tell, Johnny hasn't done any Skippy races this season since the changes. Now, to be fair, He's got his pro license now, which I discovered during the week. Actually, I didn't notice that. Congrats to Johnny for that. And to do that, I assume that he's fairly and squarely focused on the tin tops to make that happen and to be successful in that arena. Heaven knows he's got the talent to do it. And like I said, his guides have been and continue to be the best ones I've seen. Now, that's one example of, someone we might hold up on a bit of a pedestal, but what about the 2K Cup, where we see the best Skippy drivers compete? It's gone. Shut up shop. They've gone fishing, whatever they're doing. Now, I've never done a 2K Cup race, so I may not be the best person to speak about it. I did have the organiser, Philippe, on the show. He was my second ever guest, as it turned out. We talked a lot about the 2K Cup, obviously, and one of the things we briefly spoke about, for example, the reason why I haven't done it, was the timing of the race and how prohibitive it was to us in ANZ. But to his credit, Philippe said he tried moving it on that basis, that it was a bit exclusive, or it excluded us a little bit, I should say. But no one from ANZ showed up, so it was moved back to the preferred time for the more regular drivers, and I was more than okay with that. It made complete sense. I also understand the reason behind putting it all on hold at the moment. I understand it. However, understanding and agreeing are two different things, and I'll explain why. Turn our eyes to the official series. I checked earlier today, and it's currently being led by Greg Seitz, who I think most would agree is right up there with the Greenstons. He's right up in the group that you'd call aliens. SNL, Sunday Night Lights alumni, team of Escalante is in second. New Sunday Night Lights regular Sasha Gourlay is in third. Believe it or not, there is a second Greg W. Seitz. He's in fourth, and Simon Edwards is in fifth. No doubt Timu, Sasha and Simon are very good Skippy drivers, but if I look at the first page of the current season standings, apart from Greg Seitz, I don't see any of the names that I would expect to see right up there in contention. The top 1% of the 1%, they're all gone. And I mean no disrespect, I should say, to the drivers that are there. There's some really quick guys there. They are actually the ones I want to exalt. I want to build them up and say thank you for their ongoing support. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'm number 26, which puts me first on the second page, right? Even with all the help that I get from Johnny's guides, there's something going on when I'm that far up. Even though it's early in the season, I struggle to make the top 100 at times. I guess the vacuum at the top will be filled by others who might seek to take advantage of the opportunity or just enjoy the racing, for heaven's sake. I guess that's one way to look at it, I suppose. One of the greatest comic book quotes ever: with great power comes great responsibility. And I see iRacing as a community made up of smaller communities. Now, we were talking about this before, Ben. Communities built around the different categories of cars, and even the communities within those communities. I mean, the Skip Barber community is a great example, and it's a great community. Within that, there's a 2K Cup community, the UK&I community, the SNL community. The list goes on. The leaders of those communities, the people that put in a lot of time, effort, sometimes money even, to build things for the betterment of those communities. It's a hobby for them just as much as it is for any of the drivers that turn up to race. They just, for whatever reason, choose to put in some more things, more time, effort and money, whatever it is, to support the community and make it a better place. Now, I'm someone that fits into that category, and I've got to admit I'm a bit frustrated at the moment. For the most part, though, the SNL community has stayed really, really strong. So it's not holistically about the SNL community. It's just me sort of empathising perhaps with those who look to help out in the broader community. Because the regulars in our series, like even people like Fahim Antoniadis and Enzo Cantor, who I both know have really significant issues with the new tyre model, stuff that we've kind of been discussing, and still come out to support our series. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. The regulars of our series, both local and overseas, have by and large stuck it out. And I've really appreciated their support. With the move to Sundays, we've even seen some new drivers join us. I would have expected probably some more, but that's, again, I was hoping to get more of the 1% of the 1%ers, and I was hoping to see some of them join us to help build the level of competition even more, which was always the goal. But for the people that have stuck by us, for their support, I'm genuinely grateful. What I want to challenge the top-end drivers who've walked away, though, how I want to challenge them, and not just behalf of SNL, We're a community, one that's given you great times. We're going through a rough patch, if you'll pardon the pun. It will be fixed. It will get better. Don't walk away just when the going gets tough. Like it or not, you are people that others look up to. The example you set will be seen and have broader ripple-like effects that you could never have imagined. So suck it up, princess. Get out there. Take it for what it is. Have some fun. Lose or win some of that precious I rating. I have to say the racing has still been everything it's always been. It's been great. Either way, win or lose. This has always been the case with the Skippies. It is still. And it's why we love the car so much. So support your community, whichever one it is. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Ben, that was my rant. I can breathe again now. I can hopefully let it go. Heaven help me let that patch come soon. Any thoughts on all that lot, mate, so I can have a breath?
That was a good rant, mate.
Thank you.
It's exactly right. It's a shame to see some of these guys, especially, even with for him, as much as for him complains and says he hates the car and he's not enjoying it, he still rocks up on a Sunday. Even you can tell he's rocked up with no practice because he's getting slowdowns and spots and causing accidents. Just ask Crepo. Yeah. But like it's still good to see him and Enzo as well, like coming out and still supporting the Skippy and supporting the SNL community. And it's it'd be nice to see some of these other guys, some of these other guys that have been around for so long and have put so much time and effort into the car, instead of just going, nah, I'm not coming back till you fix it. Keep working and try and help the community as much as they can.
Yeah, look, I can understand the reluctance to want to learn a new way of doing things, only to have to throw it away and learn it again, particularly given that it's not representative of the world. I get it, but and again, maybe the vacuum is being filled by other people who are getting their time in the spotlight. I know I've never had, more consistent, better results. And again, partly I put that down to practice, but partly I put it down to going to races instead of being in a high soft and you've got 6 guys that you're never going to beat I'm never going to beat unless there's a mistake made. Instead, there might be 2 or 3 and as a result, my results are uplifted. And look, that's great, but above all else, I've still been really enjoying the racing. There's elements of the new tyre model that have really, worked for me. And I hope that the bits that are true to life get carried through. And I'm sure iRacing they'll get it right. Just give it some time and it'll work. So, look, that was my big rant. I'm glad to get it out. But hopefully, I don't mean offence to anyone in particular. I'm just really trying to get people back on track and enjoying this thing that we love. It's a lot of fun. It is a hobby. And ultimately, if people aren't enjoying it because of these things, then, yeah, I understand they'll take a break. But hopefully the break's not too long and they can get back out there. Now, moving on. Last thing for today, mate. Let's take a quick look at Sunday Night Lights. As it stands after 3 weeks, coming up on week 4 now, tonight, Sammy J. Toykala sits on top. He's just ahead of Sebastian Schultz and Timu Vaskalampi. Håkon Grebo, he's with Anthony Catt. They're rounding out the top 5. Luke Witten is the leading ANZ driver. He's in 6th. There's yourself, a newcomer, Greg Barber. There's one to watch. You are in 7th and 8th, respectively. With other newcomer, Sean Teal. I hope that's how I pronounce it, Sean. I know he's a mate of Mr. Gorkrocher. And a familiar face in your teammate, Russell Clark, rounding out the top 10. Notable absence this season, though, Kevin Henderson. Kevin, where are you? Did the new tyre monster eat you? I don't know. Get back in there, son. We want to see you on track. Familiar faces and new in that lot, Ben. A pretty good start to the season, I'd say. What about you, mate?
Yeah, definitely. Kevin's racing. I think he's just had some poor results. I think he's just been getting bitten. Same as I've been bitten a few times with the new tyre model, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, it does bite us all from time to time. And again, he's someone that I've always felt he's a touch quicker than me, sometimes more than a touch. And to do that, I feel you'd probably be on that edge that we spoke about. And again, maybe it's bitten him more than I've had the opportunity to talk to him about. And and maybe that's what keeping him keeping him away. Gosh, I'll get that out in a sec. Internet connection issues for the broadcaster side. I thought the race last week at Imola was really good. You ran a bit of a lonely one for yourself, mate, in the top five finish that you got though.
Yeah, it was great. I was watching the gap in front of me get bigger and the gap behind me get slightly smaller as Enzo was trying to catch me. But yeah, basically, apart from the first lap, I don't think I actually saw anybody for the rest of the race.
Yeah, well, Enzo, I'll tell you what, he did a great recovery drive. I was actually really impressed with that. But I was also impressed, mate. We've been talking about this time model and the physics and everything. I mean, you had a great save in the early stages, showing that, it can be done and that skill will find a way, mate. You got away with one there, or was it a bit of a heart stopper? Or
Oh, definitely a heart stopper. It's the low speed stuff seems not as deadly, especially like the quick soaring style counter steer. But the high speed stuff is definitely still pretty much deadly. As soon as you're gone, you need to get on the brakes and do the old 2 foot save hacks to try and get the front of the car back around.
yeah, yeah, that's it. But Timmy Gorkrotcher and Sammy Toikala ran away with it, of course. And I spoke to both of them afterwards in different sort of forms or different fashions, and both had great things to say about their races in terms of the competition that they had, largely obviously between themselves, the high standard and hard fought racing. I don't know if you had a chance to talk to either of them, but they were both very complimentary of it.
Yeah, they're both amazing race car drivers. In the virtual world, the way you race is totally different now with the Skippy because it used to be the first 2 or 3 laps were basically straight into it, hammer and tongs, gaps would form, all this stuff would happen, and then it would kind of just dull out towards the end of the race most of the time, unless you had the new draft packs and stuff like that. But now with the new tire model, with the first 2 3 laps being very very dangerous to be aggressive, you do see that kind of the only changes really happen is either someone going bonsai trying to make up positions if they've started further back than they thought they should, or people making mistakes and dropping back. You don't actually see the pace gaps develop so quickly as you were with the old tire model.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I find that there's a lot more patience required in the first couple of laps. It's very, very different. I don't know what it's like driving on a cold set of tyres on a track, but I like to imagine that it's, you've got to give it some time. As you say, what you're seeing is some more sedate beginnings to the races. And I think the races are better for it. You see more people involved for longer with less banzai moves, as you might say. But I agree with you. I don't want to give him a fat head, but he doesn't bloody listen to the podcast anyway. But Timmy G, he's getting sharp in that new rig, isn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely enjoying the fact he can push his brakes now without bending his ring in half, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Look, tonight we head off to Road America course for round 4. Like I said, you and I did some racing there earlier in the week. I had great time there with some really pleasing results for me on the back of my homework with Johnny's guide and some seat time. Ben, what do you think will be the keys to a good result tonight?
Turn 4, lap 1. I think it's turn 4. The
Yeah,
the left-hander.
yep.
Turn 4 in the first 2 or 3 laps while the tyres are a bit iffy is going to be where people will be making some mistakes.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, the kink in the draft, which I found out the other day, you can't take flat when you're behind someone.
It's amazing, actually. I found the same thing that I was quite surprised at how much the draft impacted the steering, and it made you understeer quite a bit through there. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I agree. For me, getting out on track immediately in quali to get those 2 laps in is vital. You won't make it if you don't hit go as soon as the green light tells you to qualify. And if you make too much of a mistake, anything more than a little one, and you won't get that second lap in. And that second lap can be significantly quicker. I love tracks like this where you have to use your thinking and race IQ as much as your skills steering the car. And this is certainly one of those tracks in the Skippy. There's a potential for some big packs with frequent positional changes as the different race strategies of the drivers play out. Do you have a race plan for something like this, Ben, or do you just let it play out?
It's kind of you got to play it by ear. You can't go in with a specific plan of what you want to do.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, I know I'm not going to be the fastest guy out there, so I'm basically going to have to be trying to race smart. But you can't drive away from someone around a track like this, but you
Yeah.
can lose the draft really easy by fighting in the wrong spot. So
Yeah.
that's basically going to be my main thing, is trying to keep my nose out of trouble.
Absolutely, good strategy there. Just let it play out in front of you and see what makes its way. Just looking to, I guess, avoid mistakes of your own and maybe force a couple of someone else's by putting some pressure on. So, well, Corey Steinhauser will be joining me in the booth tonight for the Top Split TV coverage of the race after making his successful debut with me last week. I'm looking forward to that. Now, the biggest thing for this race and the remainder of the season to remember is the time change. Australian daylight savings time has ended. From here on out, we move to 9:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. It's 9 p.m. 9:15.
No D.
All right,
Take the D away.
let's try that again. From here on out, we move to 9:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, the official Skippy race at that time, also known as GMT plus 10. We were plus 11, we are now plus 10. That is 1 hour early in relation to GMT, but please check what time that is in your part of the world. Plenty of sites will do it for you. I've put a link in the SNL thread about that. Take a couple of minutes to check what time it is where you are and avoid missing the big one. Well, Ben, thank you for joining me today, for listening very patiently to my rant and providing your input, as I thought it was particularly relevant given your experience. Good, thanks. You'll be back on track tonight for Sunday Night Lights, representing Team Milo, of course. I wish you all the best for that, and thank you for your ongoing support of the series, mate.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Beautiful. There you have it, folks. That brings us to an end of episode 19 of the Top Split. Next time, I hope to finally catch up with Edward Foster, who is a big part of the oval racing scene in ANZ. Looking forward to hearing more about his league and quite frankly, oval racing in general. It's not a big strength or a strong suit for me. I've given poor Edward the runaround lately, actually, in trying to get him on the show. It's been entirely through my own disorganisation, amongst other things, so I apologise to him for that, and I do look forward to the catch-up in a couple of weeks. For now, though, I will leave you with all the usual links where you can find all things Top Split in the podcast description below, whether it be in our Discord community, where we have some great discussions going on, and that is, of course, the hub for the SNL broadcast racing and interviews, our Facebook page, where we always love to hear your ideas for the show, or the YouTube channel, where you can watch the SNL race broadcasts live or check out all our previous races for this season and many before. Check out thetopsplit.com, where you'll find all the podcast episodes and links to the SNL season information. And finally, make sure you join me on Twitch, where I stream my races, and sometimes you'll even see Ben there. The channel name is simply Top Split TV. We have a lot of fun with the racing there, and for me, having folks in there makes the racing even better. So thank you all once again for joining us, and to Ben for stepping in or stepping up while the doctor is away. Until next time, though, on behalf of Benn Snell, I've been your host, Alex McKellar, and you've been listening to The Top Split. Ciao for now.